Hello and welcome to today's episode of pianoTV. I am Allysia, your host. Today we are going to do something that we've never done before. This is going to be kind of a prototype episode. What we're going to do is take a pop song, one of my favorite pop songs of all time. It's called Breathe Me by Sia. It's from 2004, so it's an older song. It's funny that a song from 2004 is old. Oh my goodness, I'm old. Anyway, we usually do analysis videos on classical music, but I thought it might be fun because I do this in my studio where we learn pop songs, but we apply classical concepts to pop music and bridge the gap between the two. I wanted to do that with today's video. So what this is going to be is we're going to talk through the chord structure of Breathe Me. We're going to talk through the lyrics and the meaning and how the music kind of conveys the meaning of the lyrics. Let's get started. As we always do with classical music, let's start with the backstory. For me, the first time I heard this was in a TV show called 6 Feet Under. It was an HBO show that ran from 2001 to 2005. It's awesome. I watched it recently and it totally holds up. It has aged very, very gracefully. I highly recommend watching it. But anyway, Breathe Me is on the very last episode of the very last season of the very last scene, and like no spoilers or anything. But it's like a very prominent placement for this song to be placed in a show. Like the very last moment of an entire show. That is like a high ranking. So I first heard it on this show and it was completely beautiful. It blew me away, got me into Sia. I don't know, like Sia's pretty popular nowadays, but she used to have like, I don't want to say like a folksy vibe, but her music was a little bit more laid back, you know, back in the early 2000s. Anyway, Sia released the song Breathe Me in 2004. It was on her album Color the Small One, and Rolling Stone called this song delicate and haunting, and I have to agree. The video is really cool too, actually. You should check it out. They used over 2,500 Polaroid stills to shoot the video. It's basically just a series of like flipping through Polaroids. It's a really cool concept. Let's have a look at the main piano part, which stays pretty much the same for the entire piece. The piano's a constant, so the other instruments are coming and going. They're adding some dynamic range, but the piano is an enduring thread. It ties the whole song together. Even though it's like this thin, small part, it's like unbreakably strong. I feel like that's getting very symbolic, and it is. But we'll talk about the song's meaning in a little bit here. So we're starting with our A minor chord, moving through a C chord. Okay, so here's our C chord. So we start with an A minor chord, moving through a C chord. And you'll notice how G is our bass note here. That'll be important in a moment. And then this is a really interesting chord. What you'll notice is that I'm playing an F chord in my left hand and a C chord in my right hand. It sounds kind of crazy when you add all three notes of each chord together. But it's just beautiful when it's used a little bit sparsely. Now, this is what we call a polychord, and a polychord is just more than one chord played at the same time. Okay, so let's look at that again. So we have A minor, C major with a G on the bottom, and then an F major, sort of. F major, C major, some variation of the two. I would probably actually call this chord an F major add 9. Now that bass line, you'll notice, we're moving downward, so we're starting. It's stepwise, okay? Now, it does this, so instead of going from here to here, it goes from here, which gives it more of like a, well, it's stepwise. And this is a really common thing for musicians to do, especially in the bass line. It kind of smooths things out, so it doesn't feel like the chords are jumping around at random. Now, if you want to learn more about this specific chord progression, we actually did talk about it on the previous video on chord progressions, so check that out if you want to get a little bit more into this. But now we're going to get into kind of the lyrics and interpretation. So we're going to take a look at the lyrical content now. And one thing I do want to say is, even though there are words, that doesn't mean that there's one definition, that there's like a set in stone way to interpret this. Instrumental music is open to interpretation, but so is vocal music, so is music with words. So this is my interpretation. Don't take it for the law, but it's just kind of what I what I get out of it. If I were to boil down the lyrical content of this song into just one word, it would be vulnerability. So this is the vulnerability of love, of being unfolded by someone that is like unfolded. I'll show you the lyrics on the screen in a moment here. One thing that I like is there's this tender and playful quality that permeates the song, but there's also this like deeper emotive quality as well that comes out, especially towards the end in the climax. So kind of, and that to me is why the song reminds me of love and why it's about love in a way, because it's got that playful energy, that light energy, but also that like really heavy, this is super meaningful energy. In the chorus, you really get this sense of wanting to be understood. She's not asking to be loved, but rather she's asking to be known. You see that in Be My Friend, Breathe Me, etc. In this case, it basically just feels like the subject of the lyric is someone who is a safe place, someone who can warm her up. Now, I actually really love the line, I am small and needy. It's just such an unusual line for a pop song, but at the same time, it's so vulnerable and honest. It's a sentiment that I think most people could relate to. I mean, regardless of whether or not you're physically small, most of us can understand what it feels like to feel small against life. The feeling of wanting to curl up somewhere safe. An interesting thing about this song is the lack of rhyming. I actually really like when artists do this. I think that it can be used to a great effect if it's actually done right. So in this case, the lack of rhyming gives the song a conversational feel, and it's much more intimate as a result. And I mean, Sia is basically whispering to you in the first verse anyway, and that further adds to the intimacy of it. It really feels like she's confessing to us. If we look at the lyrics in this first verse, it's help, I've done it again. She's really talking to you, the listener, like you're her partner in crime. This verse actually reminds me of I don't know if you've like ever had a really good cry and then like once the emotional storm is past, you just feel more real and more yourself. And in that aftermath, we're getting like an honest and tender confession. I've hurt myself again, leading to like us to our plea for friendship, for warmth, and for the understanding that she's almost demanding in the chorus. In the second verse, we have a similar sort of confession. And we even actually get a partial rhyme here with break and unsafe, which gives it a little bit more unity, makes it a little more formal than the first verse. One thing that songwriters will do with verses to keep them unified is linking them thematically. So in the first verse, she's hurting herself. And in the second verse, she's losing herself. So it's similar and it's tied together. They're really the same idea. And Sia is like literally tying it together by saying, ouch, which connects it to, the hurt in the first verse. It hurts to be lost. Musically, we get some movement in the second verse. So at the very end of the first chorus, and breathe me, we have this little bit of a pause. And then, ouch, I have lost myself again. And then the drums kick in and everything kind of amps up a little bit. And then we go through the verse, we get to the second repetition of the chorus. Be my friend. Hold me, wrap me up. And it kind of keeps going. It actually repeats twice. Now, with the second repetition, you get some vocal harmonies. I mean, anytime that you're playing around with repetition in a song, it's a good idea to add these little variations to keep it interesting, because a verbatim chorus repeat would be boring. But by adding more layers and harmonies, Sia is able to reveal something new in the story. And it also creates a bigger contrast, so that after that second chorus, when everything drops, it really catches your attention. Now, when it drops, it scales down to like a vibraphone sound. I can't show you the vibraphone sound, obviously. I have a piano in front of me. You can listen to the song for that. But there's no other accompaniment for several seconds. And the vibe sound is playful. Like, vibraphones are just naturally kind of playful. But the chords go darker in this part than at any other point in the song. It's something like this. And then it kind of picks up into the the outro. And I think this is kind of a neat dichotomy. You have the playful vibraphone with the dark chords. It kind of relates to the lyrics in that it's not just like sunshine and rainbows when we open ourselves up to somebody, when we lay ourselves bare like that. And then the climax of the... So the piano part returns in the climax, which is our unbroken thread. You could consider it like the enduring love thread or whatever. And then the strings kick into high gear in this part, and they really start taking over as the melody. The drums are uniting on the instruments. They create a sense of cohesion. The strings kind of kick in and take over some of the melody. Towards the end, we start getting this walking pattern. To mention about the chorus too, we do have this D minor chord getting thrown in there. We have be my friend, hold me, wrap me up. It's just one little chord, but it makes a distinction between the verses and the choruses that way. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today's video. Let me know what you thought of this. I'm not exactly sure how to approach pop songs on this channel. Like there's a whole bunch of like licensing concerns. Now I figure since this is educational, it's fair use, and I'm not ripping the song off in any way. I'm just kind of showing it to you. Do check out the song in full though on Spotify or your favorite music streaming app, device, player, good old CDs or whatever you want to use. Check the song out. Watch 6 Feet Under too. Like, by the way, if I were to recommend a series to you, that would be... Why am I doing this? I did this in the last video too. I just started like shaking my finger at you guys. I'm gonna wrap this up and stop like scolding you like I'm a granny getting mad at kids these days. Which I guess with a song that's 14 years old, maybe I'm a little bit of a granny scolding the kids these days. Catch you in the next video, guys. Take care. Oh man, you guys, it is so hot in this room. My piano studio in the middle of summer just turns into the desert. Hi, Kat. What are you looking at?